Vyacheslav Volodin United Russia legislative elections are currently being held in Russia from 17 to the 19th of September 2021. At stake are 450 seats in the State Duma of the 8th Convocation, the lower house of the Federal Assembly. Going into the elections, United Russia is the ruling party after winning the 2016 elections with 54.2% of the vote, taking 343 seats. In March 2020, it was proposed to hold a snap election in September 2020 due to proposed constitutional reforms. But this idea was abandoned. On the 18th of June 2021, President Vladimir Putin signed a decree calling the election for the 19th of September. Due to the pandemic, according to the decision of the Central Election Commission, voting in the elections will last for 3 days, from 17 to the 19th of September. 15 political parties submitted documents for participation in the election. 14 were guaranteed automatic access to the election ballot, and 1 unsuccessfully attempted to be included in the ballot by collecting voters' signatures. Half, or 225 seats of the State Duma are elected through legislative constituencies. The other 225 seats are elected through party lists. After 2016 elections, United Russia was the most popular party, with its polling rates ranging from 40% to 55%. While the ratings of the main opposition parties were much lower, Communist Party around the 5% threshold required to enter the State Duma. In June 2018, after Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev announced a reform to raise the retirement age, the rating of ruling party United Russia fell sharply and since then has fluctuated from around 35% to 25%, sparking a brief protests during summer. At the same time, the CPRF's rating has grown and currently ranges from 11% to 17%. The rating of Junior had also increased, but still remained relatively low and varied in between 5% and 8%. The rating of the LDPR has remained consistent at around 10% to 13%. Polling results differ on whether the Communists or Liberal Democratic Party are ranked as the second most popular party. The ratings of all non-parliamentary parties combined ranges from around 6% to 17%, with exact numbers for each party unknown, when the share of people who answered they wouldn't vote and who are unsure are equally distributed among the parties. Voter share for United Russia fluctuates around 41%, CPRF around 20%, LDPR around 15%, Junior around 8% and other parties around 14%. On the 15th of January 2020, during his address to the Federal Assembly, President Vladimir Putin proposed a referendum to be held on the number of amendments, arguing that a national vote would be necessary to make the changes to the Constitution of Russia legitimate. The amendments proposed to weaken the executive power and expand the powers of the parliament. In particular, it is supposed to transfer the power to form a government to the State Duma. This means that if the amendments were adopted, the next cabinet would be formed by the State Duma. Immediately after Putin's speech, Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev resigned along with the entire government. The next day, Mikhail Mishustin was appointed as the new PM. After that, there were suggestions about the dissolution of the State Duma and holding a snap election after the constitutional reform. At present, the State Duma can only be dissolved if it refuses the president's appointment of a prime minister 3 times in a row or passes a no-confidence motion against the government. According to sources from the presidential administration, the constitution may be amended to allow self-dissolution of the State Duma. Some political scientists and MPs also have said that the dissolution of the State Duma and holding of a snap election is likely. However, this opinion is not shared by Andrei Klishers, head of the Legal Committee of the Federation Council, who is part of the working group on preparing amendments to the Constitution. On the 10th of March 2020, during the second reading of the draft law on amendments to the Constitution, MP Alexander Karelin introduced an amendment on holding a snap election. The amendment gave the State Duma the opportunity to decide once to dissolve itself after the amendments were adopted. At first, the proposal was supported by a majority of deputies. But because there was no consensus on this issue, President Vladimir Putin urged not to dissolve the State Duma. Karelin then withdrew the amendment. If the amendment had been passed, A snap election would have been held on 13 or 20 September 2020. MP Valentina Tereshkova proposed a reset on Putin's presidential terms, which would allow him to stay in office past his second term until 2036 as it was originally set to end in 2024. United Russia supported Tereshkova's proposal. And in Putin's response, I believe and am deeply convinced that a strong presidential power is absolutely necessary for our country for stability, he declared, citing examples of countries without presidential term limits and referencing former U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt.